Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Comic Source. I'm your host, Jace. Special treat for you today. We're crossing over the worlds of animation and comics, talking about my favorite character. It's my pleasure to welcome writer, producer Josie Campbell to the show to talk about my adventures with Superman. Josie, thanks for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So, everyone out there in the audience, fair warning, there's going to be some spoilers for the first season of My Adventures of Superman because we're going to be talking to Josie about her companion series that links season one to season two of My Adventures of Superman, which comes out uh, later this month on the 26th of May, I believe, on Toonami. And then just as it was last season, the following day, the episode will be available on Max. If you haven't seen the first season, again, it's available on Max. Highly recommend it. It's fantastic. So, Josie, let's start off by giving me the elevator pitch of My Adventures with Superman. If somebody's like, oh, I haven't even heard of this, didn't even know there was a cartoon, how do you describe it, having been integral in bringing it to life?
Yeah, we the actual elevator pitch that got the whole series green light is it's a Superman rom-com with punching. Uh, and that's pretty much it. It follows a young Clark Kent who doesn't know he's an alien from another planet, just knows he has superpowers, figuring out his persona as Superman, somebody who wants to just do good in this world, while falling in love with his crushing coworker Lois Lane, a fellow intern at the Daily Planet. So it's got a lot of heart, a lot of romance. Jimmy Olsen's his best friend since college, and the three of them are tackling villains that are popping up in Metropolis, and this new Superman who's showing up too, and trying to make their big break. So it's really a coming of age story for Superman, Lois, and Jimmy.
Here's what I love about it. It's clearly Superman and it's recognizable and it feels familiar, but it also feels really fresh. As you said, it's a younger Superman, a younger Lois, a younger Jimmy. I love that Lois figured out he was Superman. Like, that was one of the
Right
things,
away. Yeah.
right? It's always like, really, you put on glasses and, it gives her agency. It makes us realize, yeah, she really is kind of the smartest person in the room a lot of times. But you're also mashing up different villains and characters and making it fresh. It really feels like this fits in the DC multiverse. Familiar characters maybe seen in a new way. Has that been a lot of fun to kind of just take things people expect and kind of spin them in a different direction?
Oh yeah, it's been phenomenal. I mean, we are all big Superman nerds on the show, but I'm also a giant DC nerd. So, the biggest charge on our show was make a Superman show that, we still have this core that is recognizable as Superman, but give us something that we haven't seen before. And every time we went into pitch, every time we went into like do an episode, that was the idea. Give us something we haven't seen before. So for us, that was let's pull in other parts of the DC universe. There's Superman villains, but there's also Batman villains showing up. There's also Task Force X showing up. There's also Slade Wilson and Intergang and all these other groups showing up. So each time we approach these characters, we'd write them in the script and then design would send us back images of what they think these characters should look like. And often it'd just be like wild. And we're like, yeah, let's go with this. This is still the core of who these villains are and who these characters are, but with a fresh coat of paint, something that nobody's ever seen before.
Yeah, and I think one of the signs of success is I've seen a lot of people who are huge Superman fans, like myself, longtime Superman fans, who have been singing his praises, saying, "Yeah, it's different." They don't even mention it's different. They just talk about how amazing it is and how it does feel like Superman. So, as a longtime DC nerd yourself, self-professed there, uh, how has the reaction been? How has the team felt about the way that the first season was received?
Oh, we were really over the moon with how much people loved the show and how much it resonated with people. I mean, when you're a creative, when you're writing something or drawing something, you think you have a grasp on like what people like, but like really you're trying to tell like the best story. You're trying to give like sort of your version of things. So you always hope that people pick up and resonate on what you're putting down. That doesn't always happen. So, going into season one, like we know that internally we love the show. I love the show. And we were just hoping that people would pick up on that passion. But then to see people, like so many people have come up to be like, like I've never been into Superman, but I love Superman now. Or, my kids or my daughter or my girlfriend has never really cared about superhero stuff, but they desperately need to watch every episode. We really were able to create something that has a little bit for everybody from super fans to people who have never seen it before. And that's both a rare thing that's really thanks to like, our entire crew gelling together, everybody working together, and also a really rewarding thing because we want people to like Superman as much as we do.
Well, here's the thing, right? Like, even if you don't read the comics, you're not a huge Superman fan, you can't help, if you're alive in this world, to be aware of who he is and kind of know he comes from
Hmm.
Krypton and that sort of thing. Just by kind of osmosis you've learned. But again, going back to this fresh start and you guys twisting things, there's a lot of mystery with him
Yeah.
not knowing. We as viewers don't know. He doesn't even realize until very late in the season that he's from the planet Krypton. So there's still a lot for him to uncover, a lot of mysteries to be solved. So I think there's like this compelling, hey, I want to tune
Yeah.
in. What revelation is going to be there for Clark this week?
Yeah. And we've changed the characters, the mythos just enough that like even long-term fans are like not sure where it's going, which was, part of our intention. Everybody grows up with Superman, but we wanted to do the version of him that doesn't get the crystal that tells him, hello, I am your father. This is your destiny. This is how your powers work. We wanted a version of him that's very human and very much a young person trying to figure out who he is and where he fits in with the world. So yeah, season 2 is going to have a lot more stuff popping up about his past too. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
What else can you, obviously we don't want to get spoilery, but what else can you tease about season two? Because then that'll lead us into this bridge series that I want to talk about.
Yeah. So yeah, without giving any spoilers, season 2 sees Clark, Lois, and Jimmy as now finally first year cub reporters at the Daily Planet. They're no longer interns, and they're trying to settle into their new roles. And with that comes, I think, some friction in their tight relationship together, especially Lois and Clark, as new threats pop up, more Task Force X threats, but also some other threats that we teased at the very end of season 1 out in space that may come to call. So it's going to be a lot more action. There's going to be a lot more new characters and new faces, and a lot more emphasis on the romance and the friendship between the three of them and what survives and what doesn't.
Yeah, that tease at the end, certain someone talking about kneeling, and if you're a Superman fan,
Hmm.
I mean, obviously, I'll say no more. But I did mention the Bridge series. That's what I want to touch on here, which kind of fills in the gaps between season one and season two. Obviously, it's a half-hour show on, a broadcast or a cable network, and so you're kind of limited in the real estate. So it's great that you can put this companion series together. Obviously, you're a veteran of writing comics. We cover your Shazam
Oh, thanks.
series on our DC Spotlight every time it comes out. But this gives you a chance to add some context and kind of play with things. The art is fantastic. It's very much in keeping with the series with line work by Pablo Collar and Nick Filardi on colors. So what can you tell us about this companion series that is going to bridge this gap between season one and season two?
Yeah, so I mean, it literally bridges the gap. It's takes place between the seasons. Season 1 ended on Thanksgiving. Season 2 is picking up in the new year. So this comic is actually our Christmas episode, essentially. And it's actually a story idea that we had kind of tossed around in the writer's room, but like never quite fit in with anything that we were doing in season 1. So when DC came to me and was like, "Hey, we want to do a companion thing. Like, what would be fun?" I immediately thought of this. So it's starting out Christmas. It's Clark Kent's first Christmas in Metropolis without his family because they're still fixing the Kent farm from the events of season 1 finale with his ship flying out of the ground. A little bummed he's going to be by himself. Jimmy and Lois are trying to make a good Christmas for him. And then into the middle of this, a piece of technology that looks like it was engineered by Dr. Ivo back in episode 4 in season 1, appears and starts endangering the city. And Superman goes to investigate. And from there, there's twists and turns and questions of who the real villain is, and a lot of tie-ins to, I think, where the technology that Ivo had in season 4, who grabbed that and where did that go, and what else was in his lab is going to be popping up in this series. So yeah, and then it ends sort of like right before season 2 begins. So it really is a fun extra. If you haven't seen season 2 yet, it's not going to spoil things, but it will like sort of like connect with things and enhance things. And if you have seen season 2, this is basically a fun extra episode we've put together with Pablo's phenomenal artwork and Nick's phenomenal colors.
Yeah, and it's great because right off the bat, we see some of the fallout of things that happened in season one, like Ivo's giant parasite suit is still there, it's being cleaned up and what have you. So the first issue, everybody, is going to be in comic shops on June 4th. So now's the time to tell your retailer to set aside a copy for you so you're sure not to miss out. But having written, and not only a producer on the show, but also written some episodes, what's the difference? What's the challenge in writing the comics script versus writing the script for the animated show?
I mean, I think the biggest challenge is, I mean, that these voices have been living in my head for so long. We've been working on the show for so long, but I do think the biggest challenge is just the very much translating it from moving images to still images and trying to find that sort of balance where you still are getting the romance and the action, but like knowing it's not a full-fledged, like moving action set piece. I mean, we've got some pretty insane ones in the show. So working with Pablo to sort of like fine tune and hone in on like, okay, what image best represents the idea of what would be like a 5 minute fight sequence in the show has been both fun and challenging. But he's really stepped up to the task. And I mean, we talked a little bit about the like anime and manga influences on all of us on the show. And he just went forward. He's got his screen tone on. He's got his panels going. So yeah, so I'd say having these images that I want to be moving, but they're still is been the hardest thing. But like me and Pablo have like put together, I think something that feels really dynamic and kinetic and leaps off the page, even though it is a still image.
Yeah, and it feels very much in tone with what we have in the animated series. And I'm hearing that you have an incredible cast of voice actors, and I'm hearing their voices in my head as I'm
Oh,
reading this.
good.
You mentioned hearing those these voices have lived in your head.
Yeah.
When you started writing this bridge series, were you hearing the cast in your head as you were writing them? Is that the Superman and Lois and Jimmy's voice that you hear now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I don't know what the voices were before, but now, yeah, I hear Jack Quaid being like Lois and Alice Lee just shouting nonsense as fast as she can, and Ishmael kind of being like, "All right, hey buddy," like that's the thing I always hear is like, "Hey buddy, okay buddy." So yeah, they've become my Superman, Lois, and Jimmy. Which is exciting. I hope that they become the Superman, Lois, and Jimmy for a whole generation of people.
Yeah, they again, they're just fantastic. And so I, let me tell you how big of a Superman fan I am. My
All
wife's name
right.
is Lois. It wasn't purposeful, but it certainly didn't hurt. So yeah,
Hmm.
again, to have Lois figure out that he was Superman kind of on her own so early, my
Yeah.
wife just loved that as well. So,
Awesome.
thank you so much for your time, Josie. It's been a pleasure chatting with you. Best of luck on season two. As we're winding down here, any last thoughts for our audience?
I mean, look, if you've enjoyed the TV show, pick up the comic. You're going to have a blast. It really, truly does feel like, our goal was to make an extra episode of the show just on paper, and that's exactly what we've done. So if you want extra Superman content, check out the season two when it premieres on the 25th, and check out our comic when it comes out. I think like the that week or the week after.
The week after, it'll be in stores on June 4th, everybody. So again, now's the time to tell your uh, local comic shop that you want a copy. Again, thank you so much for joining me, Josie. It's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.